It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey there, powerful people. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, amplifying women's voices. I'm Kelly Hint, Queen Bee of this particular hive, and your guide for this weekly dose of empowerment. Today, we're diving into a topic that is heavy but vital: sexism in the workplace. If you've ever experienced it, witnessed it, or felt uncertain about how to respond to it, then this episode is for you. So, buckle up, because we are going to talk about what workplace sexism looks like, how to overcome it, and how to advocate for yourself and others in a way that's assertive and unapologetic. Okay, so first things first. Let's break down what we're really talking about when we say sexism in the workplace. It is any behavior, policy, or action that devalues or discriminates against employees based on gender. Now, this could be very overt, like being passed over for a promotion just because you're a woman, or it could be subtle, like often being interrupted in meetings or having your ideas dismissed until someone else repeats them. And statistics? Oh, of course we have those. Studies show that 42% of women in the United States have experienced gender discrimination at work. I am one of the 42%. Women of color and LGBTQ plus women face even higher rates. And no, we are not imagining it. It is real. It is systemic. And it is time that we take our power back. Now, there are people out there, the ones I've encountered happen to be men, but there are people out there that will deny that this is still a problem. They will say, women can do anything that they want to. Nobody's holding them back. Nobody's telling them that they can't do it. I'm sorry, but that is false. And as a matter of fact, as a therapist, I work with women every single day that are experiencing sexism. So please stop trying to tell me that this is no longer a problem. Yes, we have made progress in this area, but no, the problem is not gone. Misogyny still exists. Sexism still exists. Discrimination still exists. Stop denying it and be part of the solution, okay? Yikes, okay. Time to get back on track before I go down that rabbit hole. I think it's important to say that, and just to put it out there, that discrimination doesn't stop with hiring and promotions. It can also show up in the form of pay inequality, inappropriate comments, or even lack of access to key opportunities. And here's the kicker. Many women still feel pressured to keep quiet or downplay these experiences for fear of retaliation or being labeled as troublemakers. Some notable examples. Serena Williams, she has spoken openly about facing both racial and gender bias in the tennis world, highlighting how sexism extends beyond corporate offices. It's not just in the boardroom that this is happening, people. And let's not forget Sheryl Sandberg, the former COO of Facebook, who has been an advocate for women leaning into leadership roles despite the barriers they face. And then we also have Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors. As the first woman to lead a major global automaker, she's been very open about the challenges of navigating a traditionally male-dominated industry. And Whitney Wolfe Herd, founder of Bumble, has publicly addressed sexism in the tech world and used her platform to create safer, more equitable spaces. And I don't think we even need to list all of the women who came forward with the Me Too movement, talking about the sexual assault experiences that they dealt with in their workplaces. So, no, sexism is not over. Yes, the patriarchy is still a real system that operates in this world. And yes, I will say that it operates more heavily in other areas of the world than the one I am currently in. However, I'm still experiencing the effects of the patriarchy here in this country, in the United States. And a lot of the women I work with are also. Even seemingly innocent gestures. And again, this is hard to talk about because it seems like I'm jumping all over men, but I'm not. I need you guys, any guy who happens to be listening to this, just understand that women are not the fragile creatures that you have been led to believe they are. We can be damn powerhouses. And there are times when it's incredibly insulting to us when you swoop in to rescue us when we don't need to be rescued. And some instances of sexism and bias and all that actually don't come from a horrible place. And that may sound weird to hear, but I know of very, very well-intentioned men who inadvertently do something so incredibly insulting to a woman, and they have no idea because their intention is not negative. They're just trying to help out, right? And this is why we need to have more of these conversations with the men in our lives, ladies. We need to educate them, not in a preachy, crappy, condescending way. I mean, everything. I can't even go on a Facebook group about raising chickens. I promise this is going somewhere. Without seeing people being condescending and rude. Yes, so I'm getting chickens. And this has been in the works for many, many years. It just happened to coincide that I was able to start this adventure during this bird flu outbreak. So, of course, my chicken purchases have been delayed because everybody is going crazy with all this stuff in the egg prices and all that nonsense. That's not why my husband and I decided to get chickens. We've wanted this for a while. So anyway, wow, I'm really getting off topic here. My point is, I've been doing as much research as I can, both like online, on social media, trying to get ideas. And all I see all over the place are people coming in asking innocent questions because they don't know the answer. And these people just jumping all over them and being rude and condescending. It's like bully behavior is okay now. And I, for one, am not there for it. And I don't want to be part of it. So when I'm telling people to educate the men in their lives, please, I'm not saying hit them over the head with a frying pan and tell them that they're idiots. No, just simply say, if a guy says something to you that's not cool, tell them. Be like, hey, like that didn't hit well with me. Like, what's going on behind that? Or even, I appreciate that suggestion, but I'm wondering why you felt the need to make it when I didn't ask. If, I didn't ask your opinion, or just even telling them, I think that maybe you feel that you need to rescue me in this moment, but I kind of want to work this out on my own. And then, of course, educating yourself behind about the reasons behind all of this. Like, why does it bother you when a guy gives you unsolicited advice about something? Really think about that. Think about why it bothers you and then communicate that to them. Because again, we are not going to stop this unless we communicate about it. But before we talk about external action, I got way ahead of myself. I think we need to first address internalized sexism. These are those stupid, sneaky thoughts that whisper, maybe I'm not good enough, right? Maybe you found yourself apologizing for things that don't require apologies, or downplaying your achievements to seem more likable. One of the things that I did throughout my entire life until I woke up was I watered myself down. I gave people small doses of myself because I'm too much. I'm too much for a lot of people. And instead of finding my people who don't think that I'm too much, I made myself smaller. That was the worst possible thing I could have done because it created a lifetime of heartbreak for me. Because now, when I am my unapologetic self, it's even harder for people to take because I'm no longer making myself smaller so they can feel more comfortable. So I really encourage you to think about some of that. Think about some of the things that you've done in your own life to try and either be more likable or more palatable or not hurt people's feelings. We can be kind, but also assertive. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to overcoming them. When you catch yourself falling into that trap, just pause. Reframe those thoughts. Instead of, I'm not ready for this role at work, try, I am learning every day and I deserve this opportunity. Give yourself some credit. Your achievements matter. It is okay to take up space and be proud of what you've done. You are not arrogant. You are simply owning your worth. And another wonderful example of that is Malala Yousafzai. Though primarily she's known for her activism in education, she also tackled sexism within educational and professional spaces, constantly reinforcing the message that women's voices are valuable and necessary in every arena. All right, so I know I got a little off track initially, but let's jump into the badass action steps that we can take when we're dealing with sexism at work. So the first thing I say, and I've told ladies that I work with about this too, document everything. If something feels wrong, document it. Write down what happened, when it happened, and who was involved. Keep emails and messages. Why? Because documentation turns a he said, she said into hard evidence. And I will go a step further and say something that I did when I had to deal with some issues at a former workplace. I would email myself after an interaction with somebody that was not healthy. I had a toxic work environment. I would email myself. It's very important you make sure you're emailing yourself and not the person, because that would be bad. But I would just send myself an email. I would say, on this date and time, such and such said this. My response was this. He said this back to me. I felt this. And I would send it to myself. And by the time I was done at that particular place, I had a giant stack of emails that I submitted to human resources. Because this record that you're keeping could be critical if you decide to escalate the issue to HR or legal channels. It also gives you clarity on patterns that might have otherwise felt isolated. That's another thing that I noticed. I was noticing a pattern when I went through and reread all of this. Now, one thing that I came to learn, I thought human resources was to protect the employees, but it's to protect the employer. Maybe your experience is different, but at every agency I've ever worked at, human resources is there to cover the employer's ass. So just keep that in mind. The next step, if you're dealing with sexism at work, is to learn your rights. Know your company's policies and labor laws regarding discrimination. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, otherwise known as the EEOC, is a great resource if you're in the U.S. Familiarize yourself with terms like hostile work environment and retaliation so you know when lines are being crossed. And I would encourage you, if you are in the United States, to become familiar with this sooner than later because some of these things, as you know, are going away. So I won't even go down that rabbit hole right now. Focus, Kelly, focus. All right. The next step, speak up. If it is safe and you are comfortable, address inappropriate comments or behaviors in the moment. And let me tell you, as a therapist and coach, one of my favorite things to do is to work with women on this. I love working on this with them because it's hard to address things in the moment. So, for example, if you're talking and somebody interrupts you, just simply say, "I was not finished speaking yet." Clear, direct, unapologetic. And for more egregious issues, like a sexist comment, you can say, "That comment is inappropriate." Sometimes just naming that behavior is enough to shut it down. Another thing that I started doing, and I can't remember if I shared this in another episode or not, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But when people would be telling sexist jokes at work, I would play stupid and they would actually tell me a sexist joke about women and they would be laughing hysterically. And I would just look at them dumbfounded, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? Explain that joke. I don't get it. I don't see it. What's up with that?" And when they have to try and explain why it's funny, it's kind of funny to watch them cringe because they realize that they've said something really stupid. The next step that you can take is to build a support system. Find allies at work who understand and support your advocacy efforts. Maybe it's a women's network or a few trusted colleagues who have your back. Maybe there's a Facebook group that addresses issues like this. There's lots of women's Facebook groups out there. Just make sure you find the right one, not the catty ones. Support systems, they are also essential for emotional resilience because it is draining to constantly advocate for yourself. So if you can lean on others for encouragement when you need it, then that is ideal. And then the last piece here is involving human resources or leadership. So if informal conversations don't lead to change, escalate the issue. Use your documentation to make your case. When you go to HR, frame it as professional concern, not personal complaint, because this can sometimes make them take it more seriously. As a matter of fact, Ellen Powell famously sued a venture capital firm for gender discrimination, putting the tech industry's toxic culture under a global spotlight. Unfortunately, her case did not end in her favor, but it did spark worldwide conversations about sexism in Silicon Valley. So sometimes things don't work out the way we want, but putting a spotlight on issues is just as important sometimes. And you know what? Sometimes advocacy, did I even say that right? Advocacy, there we go. Sometimes advocacy is not just about you. It is about being an ally to others. That's why I feel very passionate about advocating for, like, against racism, for anti-racist behaviors, and advocacy for advocating for the LGBTQ plus community. I am not a member. I am an ally. I am an advocate. And part of that, to advocate for others, call out bias. And getting back to sexism at work, if you notice a woman's idea being overlooked, amplify it. Say, I really liked so-and-so's suggestion. Let's revisit that. Be her ally. Call out the bias. And also, you can mentor and sponsor younger colleagues. Offering mentorship to a younger woman or a colleague new to the industry can be employment changing, maybe even life changing. I don't want to get too dramatic. If you are in a position of power, sponsor these new young women. Help them obtain new opportunities. And then, of course, challenge unfair policies. Advocate for systemic changes like better parental leave, flexible schedules, or pay transparency. Advocacy can also mean creating safe spaces for conversations. Start discussions on gender equity in team meetings or through company initiatives. One of my favorite notable examples is former Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a fierce advocate for gender equality and workplace rights, ensuring women's voices were elevated and protected under the law. We can also look to Kamala Harris, who has spoken about breaking barriers and challenging outdated norms through her own career. But what happens when you face resistance? Because let's be real, not everyone is going to cheer you on. Stay grounded. Remind yourself that speaking up is not about making others comfortable. It is about demanding respect and equity. When someone accuses you of being too aggressive, simply say, I'm assertive, not aggressive. Ladies, you are allowed to take up space. And also, remember that not every single battle is yours to fight alone. Seek allies to step in and support you, and pick your battles based on where you'll have the most impact. And now for our quote of the week. This one comes from the incredible Audre Lorde that I have quoted before. Your silence will not protect you. Powerful, right? It's a reminder that staying silent in the face of injustice does not keep us safe. It simply just maintains the status quo. Lorde's words are a battle cry. Speaking up may be hard, but it is the path to real change. Ladies, it is time to put this knowledge into action. This week, if you have the opportunity to do so, I want you to do one thing to stand up for yourself or someone else at work. Maybe it's as small as reclaiming your time in a meeting, or as big as reporting an ongoing issue. And also, if this episode resonated with you, share it with a colleague or friend who could use a little empowerment boost. And join the conversation in our Facebook group. We are building a community of fierce advocates there. And lastly, I challenge you to educate yourself on systemic sexism and how to dismantle it. Because knowledge is power, and together we are unstoppable. Until next time, keep owning your power and making noise. You are not just surviving sexism. You are breaking it down one badass move at a time. This has been the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices. See you next week. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.